when you're an
You never know who's watching you, and you never know like any moment that you have like while we're here to inspire people. So live your life as if like that's the mission, I guess, and like be a light to people.
All right, welcome to the What You Don't Hear podcast. I am your host. My name is Ross Theisen. I am a filmmaker, a creative director, a brand builder, a maker and doer of probably too many ideas, but of course, most importantly for this, I'm a podcaster as I bring you these open journal dives into people's lives every other Monday. If you know, you know, but if you're new around here, welcome to the show. Grab the most yellow thing near you, pull up a seat, because we're about to get to know someone a whole lot better. But before we dive into this week's conversation, there's something new I've got to share with you guys on this episode. So there's some changes happening around the What You Don't Hear studio in 2022, and that change comes in the form of sponsors. I'm getting some sponsors for this show. Like, isn't that pretty cool? I mean, I personally think it is. And the sponsor for this week's episode is honestly very fitting for the music-filled conversation that you're about to hear, because this week's episode is sponsored by Promo West Productions from right here in Columbus, Ohio. Now, I have been to countless Promo West shows over the years. They helped me photograph and get connected with a ton of cool artists back when I shot live photography. They're absolutely great, and I am super glad to have them on board as live music makes a comeback, because of course talking about Columbus's music scene is one thing, but experiencing it is another. So if you're interested in catching a live show, you can check out one of these upcoming concerts at the Newport Music Hall, brought to you by Promo West Productions. We've got the Wombats on February 1st, Starfucker on Saturday, February 5th, Sleigh Bells on February 8th, and We Banjo 3 on Friday, March 4th. Again, all of those taking place at the Newport Music Hall. So to purchase tickets, visit axs.com, or of course, for more info, please visit promowestlive.com. Again, for tickets, axs.com, or for more info on any of those shows or any more coming up after that, visit promowestlive.com. Now, let's jump into today's show. So, what I do on the show is I sit down with a guest and I chat with them about their life story, covering a little bit of everything, including mainly what their journey of chasing their passions and goals has really looked like, covering all the ups, all the downs, and all the thoughts and feelings in between, digging into those sides of people's stories that we don't often get to hear. Now, something else that I'm a big fan of is pro wrestling, which going into this week's episode, I had no idea how much that fandom would come into play and make for seriously one of the most fun talks I have ever had on this show. Because this week, I sit down with musician Joey Aich, and it turns out he's a huge lover of pro wrestling as well. So not only did we get to talk about all that once we made the connection, but more so, really how the world of pro wrestling taught each of us so much about marketing and branding, and how we carried that into so many different aspects of our lives and all that we do and create. And Joey himself does many things, and of course we uncover a lot of that here as he shares his story. So realistically, let's just dive in. I don't need to put it off anymore, so without any further ado, and realistically, without putting this off any longer, trying to fit in some heavy urges to throw in any wrestling-related puns here in the intro, let's just get to the conversation. Here is episode 49 of What You Don't Hear, and my conversation with the headband assassin, Joey Aich. Ready to make this happen, dude?
Yeah.
Ready to actually literally meet for the first time and get to know each other while it's being recorded for a podcast? Well, Joey, dude, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be a part.
Yeah, dude. Thanks so much for being down. I know we've never met before, so it's always fun to me when people are like down to meet for the very first time on a podcast.
Yeah.
It's not like, hey, yeah, we've hung out before or whatever. It's like, hey, do you want to like literally get to know each other while it's being recorded in audio and video form for everyone else to listen to as well? So I'm always stoked when people are down, man. So I appreciate you being here.
Absolutely.
So I wanted to have you on the show because again, we've never met, but I feel like it's almost that case of almost like 1 degree of separation away sort of thing, where I feel like we know some of the same people. And I have seen your name in so many different places and time that I'm like, I just need to know this dude already. Like, because I feel like I've seen your name pop up at least for a couple of years, like all over the place, whether it's music or whatever it may be. And so I was like, okay, I need to reach out. I need to actually know this dude. So that way, when I see your name pop up, I'm like, yeah, that's Joey. I know Joey. So yeah, dude, I'm stoked you're down. And so I guess maybe even lay out to me, because again, I know you make music, but maybe lay it out for me or anybody listening who's getting to know you as well for the first time. What all do you do?
So I make music. I go by the name of Joey Aich, Aich. I perform a lot. I do a bunch of things now, as far as like, since I guess quarantine and stuff, I've become a painter a little bit.
Okay.
I work with kids for Wave. We amplify voices right now, and overall just a cool guy.
Nice. I love it, man. So are you somebody who tries to seek many different things to do? Because like I always love chatting with people like that, who are like, I do this, but I'm also sort of this now, and I kind of do a little bit of this. Like, it's always exciting when I see people just trying a bunch of multiple things.
Kind of like, so before it was cool to say like I'm a creator,
right? Like
that was really what I like, not necessarily identify with, but it's just like, what do you do? It's like, I just create shit. Like, that's I like to put my hands into everything, as far as music. I was into theater when I was younger, and choir and everything. So like, I was somebody who like fit around different circles and stuff, because I just did so much, and it's always just had my creativity and stuff just wander with it. So
right. And so I guess, did that come from, like, did you grow up here in Columbus?
I grew up in Cleveland, Woodmere Village.
Okay.
And then moved down here in 2017.
Okay. And so was that just sort of kind of like you were saying, like always with you growing up? Like were you like raised in a creatively driven environment, or was creativity like just the thing that you found for yourself that was like an escape in some ways? Or like, I guess, what was growing up like?
Kind of. So when I was like much younger, I want to say like first or second grade, it was Dragon Ball Z was really big, and me and my friends would like do our own versions of Dragon Ball Z and stuff. And like, I never realized like that type of storytelling and stuff would eventually lead to me wanting to just create in video games. So it's like, now when I play a video game, I can't just make myself. I have to make a character, and that character has to have a story, and they have to have a storyline attached to them. And like, how did this player go to the Boston Red Sox instead of the San Francisco Giants or something like that? Or why aren't they playing in Cleveland or whatever? So like, I've always just, my mind has always just been like, create some type of storyline or something, tell a story with it. And then since then, it's just been like, for me, the different outlets that I've had is like choir, theater, band, even though I got kicked out. Just a bunch of things. Like, I've just always been drawn to it, and then I found poetry, and all of that led to me being a rapper.
Dude, so I feel like so much of what you just explained, we are very similar in. So like, I would always take, and I mean, I still do, but now I'm, you become more capable to actually create real things rather than just kind of having it be in your imagination or in a video game or something. But like, I've always been that exact same way, where like, I would always take the universe building that I would wanted to do. I would always take it so far, where like, myself and my little brother, we would always play like skateboard video games or motocross video games and stuff like that. And I would always make us, like, I would get like a notepad, and I would always make us like choose our sponsors.
Yes.
And then I would like literally be like, so what? Okay, why are you choosing this sponsor? All right, cool. So now that you've chose these sponsors, that means when you go create your character for this, you need to make them look like this, and this is why. And like literally even getting into like the in-depth like branding of a video game character, much like you were kind of saying of like, I always would look at stuff that way, and I never really. I don't, it's interesting to look back on that, and I love when I hear people say that they do the same thing, because I'm like, I feel like that's such a, like when you're a kid and you do that, it's clearly like, oh, you're a kid with an imagination. Mm-hmm. Oh, you're being creative. Yeah, of course. Make those video game characters have a whole storyline in their lives, like whatever. And I think for a while it's easy to look at it just like that, but now as an adult, looking back, I'm like, I do those exact same things now, just in more realistic ways with people. You know what I mean? Where I'm always so stuck on like, okay, what's the reasoning? What's the purpose? Like, what's the story we're building here? Like, so I love hearing you say
I'm
that.
like, I remember, so I play like WWE. I play a lot of sports games. So,
WWE, I was addicted to wrestling games.
It's like it's like one of my favorite games of all time. This last one was not good, but
I haven't played any recent ones. But are you sorry to cut you off? Are you a wrestling fan?
Yeah.
Okay, we're gonna be friends. We are gonna be good friends then.
Yeah. So, like, I'll play the games, and they have like this thing called universe mode.
Yep.
And so, you know, basically you can't go back the week before in the game. So it's like, I got to remember everything. So, like, I got a notebook, and I'm sitting there writing. Like, all right, so we got Adam Cole versus Seth Rollins, blah, blah, blah. Bianca Belair versus Sasha. And I'll write those down, like, these are the storylines. So I remember one time my friend Dom comes over, Dom Deshawn, he comes over, he's like, oh, I see you, you know, working on your universe mode, because he does the same thing. And I'm like, man, just to not feel weird for doing stuff like that. And like now you do that is like hilarious.
Yeah, dude, I was, so I'm like a gigantic wrestling fan. So I would do stuff like that all the time. Like I would do, like there was a couple friends I had growing up who were like almost as into wrestling as I was, but involved in it enough that we essentially would do like what is now like fantasy sports, like fantasy football, all that sort of stuff. We would do that, but with wrestling, where we would fill up notebooks with storylines and booking and all that sort of stuff. And we would draft our rosters. We would create our own companies. So, dude, we could talk for hours about storylines and booking and all that sort of stuff. And I literally, again, like looking at all of that growing up, like I can now identify like, that's how I think with so many things. Yeah. From those.
And like even like not even just video games, but like I had all the wrestlers, like the toys and stuff like that.
Same.
So me, my little brother, my cousin, we would like have, whenever we would go over to my grandmother's house, it's like, all right, cool. You got your ring. I got my ring. You have your ring. And then we all draft our different.
You guys would do fig feds.
Yeah, and then it's like I have like 2 Kurt Angles. My cousin has a Kurt Angle. My little brother has a Kurt Angle. And it's like, all right, we all can't have Kurt Angle, so we have to make different versions of this person. And like the names we would make, the finishers we would use, and stuff like that. It was like entrance music stuff. Like that all came. I mean, like. I feel like that has made me more creative and stuff like that with everything that I do now, as far as in music or just in general.
Yeah, dude, like literally I've credited pro wrestling as one of my biggest like knowledge gaining experiences of what marketing and branding and storytelling is.
Oh yeah.
Like I've talked about that so much with people where, you know, I'm like, yeah, you know, I really learned, I think a lot from storytelling and marketing and stuff from wrestling. And, you know, everyone's reaction is obviously like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
Like it doesn't make any sense. And I'm like, well, when you're an actual fan and you really do pay attention, and then obviously you learn how the business works and, you know, all that sort of stuff, like you pay attention to all of it,
Yeah.
and you understand like, oh, this is why these decisions are being made, and this does make sense, or this doesn't make sense, and I see how they're building up this character and what decisions make sense. And there are so many creative decisions or ideas or plans or tons of stuff that I've done as an adult that I have learned from pro wrestling.
Me and my little brother talk about it all the time because he's an actor. He does stuff in New York, Broadway, and he just got back into wrestling like recently, and he's watching. He's just like, this is like storytelling. This is theater. This is like setups and everything, and like that's all stuff that he learned through theater, and to like watch all that, bring all of that stuff into pro wrestling is like, it totally makes sense. And he's like, man, they're not selling this character enough.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
And it's really cool. It's really cool.
Yeah, there's so much of that stuff that I'll do. Like, when I watch something nowadays, and something nowadays can be very, very hit or miss in a lot of cases. And I don't know what all you watch. Like, I don't know if you're just a WWE guy, or if you're an AEW person as well, or if you dig into like the indies and stuff like that a lot, or...
I'm mostly just AEW and WWE. I am a like Hulu next day type person.
Right.
Or I won't watch for like 2-3 weeks, but I know what's going on because I follow everybody. And then it's like, oh, Survivor Series coming up. Cool. Let me tap in and see what's going on. Oh, this is the storyline. Sweet. Or, oh, they're still doing this one from back in January. I'm sick of it. Whatever.
Yeah.
And then go like that.
And that's like, so I asked that because there's so much of I watch, especially with WWE. I think they've gotten real iffy with the way that they tell stories.
Yeah.
And I feel like in a way it teaches me, just like you were saying your brother points out, I feel like I notice those things so much now where I'm like, again, I'm just the viewer, I'm just the customer, right? So I'm like, oh yeah, you should be making me happy, but that's a whole other conversation. But I see so many decisions and I'm like, okay, but from a storytelling standpoint, that doesn't make any sense. Why would you do that? And I think when people hear like, oh, you're a pro wrestling fan, or oh, you learned marketing from pro wrestling, most people just think of pro wrestling as just big meaty men slapping meat. That's what they think.
You want your 30-minute matches.
Not big meaty men slapping. I'm so happy that you got that.
I love that. And I'm so happy for Big E.
Yes, that is a case of something awesome happening, and like it was absolutely. But that's what most people think is they're like, oh, you watch big meaty men slapping meat, and it's like, well, no, I'm sure somebody somewhere is like, yeah, I just want to see oily people hit each other, like, and I understand that. But for me, with like how deep I got into it at a young age and how much I learned to care about it, I do watch it from the standpoint of like, no, I want this to make sense. I watch it just like, I have friends that are huge Marvel movie fans, right? And they love the MCU
so much.
And I'm like, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. Like if and I'm not that deep into the Marvel universe. Like I know general stuff, but like for an example, like the answer I always give people is like, imagine if like in one Avengers movie, Thor died, but then the next Avengers movie, he was just alive again with zero explanation. I'm like, those are sometimes the storytelling decisions that wrestling makes. And I'm like, this doesn't make any sense. And those are the things that I pay attention to. And it teaches me more about like making sure the stuff that I do makes more sense. Yes.
And like, even to go off like the marketing stuff. So, and kind of like, to bring in superheroes and wrestling, like a lot of people know me as like the Headband Assassin. That's my Twitter name and everything like that. And originally, like I just got that from wrestling and from superheroes and stuff. It's like every wrestler has to have like their nickname. So like Randy Orton is the Apex Predator or the Viper or anything like that. And it's just like, all right, so what's Joey H?
Yeah.
Oh, the Headband Assassin. And then like I could go off of like t-shirts and stuff like that and just like building my character on. And so like I didn't realize how much I learned from wrestling until I got much older.
Yeah.
And then I was like, oh, okay. this is how you build a character. This is how you sell a story. This is how you, in music, like give a rollout or something like that.
Yep.
And deliver a promo. Even like being on stage and you have a minute and a half and you have to say something instead of just going into the next song. It's like, okay, cool. I'm gonna talk my shit a little bit. Oh, can I?
Oh yeah, you can.
Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
you can say
Cool.
whatever.
So
You
it's
want.
like I could talk and get my point across to everybody, and like I get that from The Rock, from Stone Cold. Like,
yep. One of the biggest things that I feel like, even in a way, helped me gain confidence as an adult in owning those things that you're talking about. Of like, okay, when you're going into a creative endeavor or trying to be an entrepreneur or whatever, you do have to like take ownership of what you're doing.
Yeah.
You do have to kind of be the face in a way. And, so it is like, just like you were saying, like, what's your brand? What's your marketing? And something I will always remember is, when I was younger, I was watching some like Stone Cold documentary, and they were talking about kind of the creation of his quote unquote character. And something he said was, or something that somebody said was, the best wrestling characters are just an extension of the human being.
yeah,
It's not this, yes, to be fair, The Undertaker isn't really a dead guy in real life.
Yeah.
But, with a case like Stone Cold, that was sort of just him with the volume turned up to 11.
Yeah.
And ever since I heard that explanation, I was like, that makes so much sense. Like, because what that is really teaching you, if you want to put it in marketing and business terms, is to be authentic.
yeah,
Is you can be branded and you can have this marketing and you can have all this stuff, but it's going to work best when it's authentic to you and it's an extension of who you are.
yeah,
You know what I mean? So it's not just like putting on this huge facade. And when you look back, taking it back to wrestling, if you look, there's easy cases to be made when it's like, oh, this character was kind of just a really big deviation from probably what that human being actually felt like doing.
Yeah.
And it didn't really work.
Yeah.
But then you see Stone Cold is like, he is just like a Texas redneck who loves drinking beer and saying bad words on TV. Yeah, that's kind of just him.
Yeah.
And so the character, him, going above and beyond, that made a bunch of sense. Same thing with The Rock.
Yeah.
It's like you look at anything The Rock posts on Instagram, now he's The Rock.
Yeah.
That is him. His character was just him.
Yeah.
And so it worked tremendously. And so, yeah, that's, again, I love whenever I can have this conversation with people about the amount of, like, real storytelling and marketing and branding there is to be learned from pro wrestling. And I've done the exact same thing when it comes to learning how to brand myself or figuring out those things. Like, and there's so many times where I'm like, oh, man, am I trying to be too cheesy with this thing I want? Because I'm thinking of it in wrestling terms. Where I'm like, yeah, if I did this, it'd be funny if I started wearing this and I just started owning it and doing that. And I'm like, I don't know, am I taking it too far? Like, I'm not walking out to a crowd of 10,000 people to wrestle a match. So maybe I shouldn't do that. But
like that, I mean, so to kind of go with like the headband assassin thing, it started back in 2013, 14-ish. And originally it's just like, I didn't have a haircut. I didn't have a hairline. I just looked bad. I was on campus and I was like, all right, I'm about to perform and I'm going to put this bandana at the time around my head so like it just covers that up. And then eventually evolved into me wearing a headband. And like after a while I was like, oh man, when I perform, if I'm on this showcase when there's like 14 different artists and stuff like that, what's going to make me stand out?
Yep.
Oh, the energetic dude who wore the headband. Let's go with that. Or like, let's continue to do that. But like, I've always worn headbands. It just turned into like around 2018 or 19 or whatever. It was like, all right, I'm done wearing Under Armour and Nike and Wilson and everything else on my headbands. Let's put my logo on there.
Yeah.
And like, now it's at a point where a lot of people see me and they're just like, oh, where's the headband? Or when are you about to put the headband on? Or, oh, the headband's on, you must be performing today or something like that. And like, I've like branded it that way, but like it's also just been very, very organic of like, I just enjoy wearing them when I perform.
It's an extension of something that you actually enjoy or want to do or be a part of. You're not faking it. You're not like, oh, I have to wear a bandana so I look cool.
Yeah.
You're like, I want to wear them. I like to wear them. And I can see how this can turn into branding and marketing for me. So yeah, I might as well just keep that up. Like something that is so subtle and doesn't matter at all that I've actually done over the years, or tried to do at least, that probably no one has ever noticed, is something I learned from Chris Jericho. And he, again, as a fan, you've seen all the different phases he goes through, right? And something that he has said is like that he tries to keep himself fresh. So every time there's like a new quote unquote chapter in his career, he tries to change up his look a little bit.
Yeah.
I've subtly tried to do that same thing over the years in my life when I'm like, I feel like I'm changing right now. And I'm like, I want to outwardly change too. And it's not anything drastic, but I'm like, no, I'm cutting my hair right now, and this is going to be my look right now. And then the next thing is like, maybe I'm going to wear clothes like this a little bit. It's not like totally changing who I am, but I'm like, it's this and maybe this hairstyle and whatever, maybe this style of glasses or whatever. And then I'm like, okay, I think, a new chapter is starting. So I'm going to grow my hair out, and I'm going to go with this look, and I'm going to do this thing. And like, that's literally something that I learned from him. And I'm like, I really love that, even in just normal life, like almost associating, fresh. Associating like these physical changes with the changes happening around you. Where of course, with someone like him, he's changing his look depending on his character and the storyline he's in. But it still makes so much sense, and I still think you can use that in any form because you're just evolving something. Yeah. What is the next chapter of your business? What is the next chapter of you as an artist? Change with that. Yeah. And it's just everybody does that. It's not just pro wrestling, but like, I don't know if you're familiar with Limp Bizkit, the artist Limp Bizkit, right? So they just played a set at Lollapalooza this year, and he came out dressed like this old man. So he had this like gray handlebar mustache, and he had let his hair grow out into this huge like pompadour-esque awful comb over bowl cut sort of thing. He wore like dad clothes. And it blew up on the internet. Everyone was like, can you believe Fred Durst? Like, you see the way he's dressed? You see Limp Bizkit's performance? Like, he's dressed like this old dad. Like, that's so insane. And he let himself become a meme on the internet. Their new album is called Dad Vibes. And their new song that they dropped is called Dad Vibes. So he was just completely, and it's more outrageous than just like changing your hair a little bit. But that's somebody who understands, and an awesome example of like, nobody knew the album was coming, really. Nobody knew what it was called. No one knew why he was dressed like this old dad. And then by the end of it, everyone's like, oh, it's a marketing thing. That's so much fun. Like, and he just owned it. It wasn't just walking out doing the exact same thing that Limp Bizkit has done for years and being like, hey, new album's out, by the way, you should really care about it. They leaned into, what should we do to try and market this?
Bring more, like, just not only like bring more eyes, but again, like, make it fresh.
Yes, and make it fun and make it matter in a way. That's something I think like a lot of brands, and I'll just sum that up by saying brands, and I mean businesses and artists and everything. Anybody that has a brand, I think that's something a lot of people get wrong, is they don't evolve and change with things. They sort of just, try the same thing 100 times and hope that it sticks. Or they try and they fail and they don't learn anything from that failure. And then they're just like, well, I guess I'll just try it again. Again, until that's maybe insanity. It works. And that's insanity, right? That's the definition, right? And to me, like, I love that I almost subconsciously learned that so early on, to where I was always, just for creative reasons, wanted to always change, wanted to always evolve, wanted to try these new and fun things, rooted from, watching wrestling all the time. But now as an adult, as someone who's involved in the creative and business world, I look at that and I'm like, well, this is a thing that so many brands are missing. Is that ability to tap into something fun or purposeful or meaningful in their marketing or their branding, like a Limp Bizkit. Okay, like that's a perfect marketing tactic to market your new Dad Vibes release. Like that's genius. You know what I mean? And I don't think a lot of people think in that way. And to me, it's not, the answer isn't, somebody could be listening to this and be like, dude, I'm not going to dress up like an old man to promote my thing. It's not that.
And like even in like wrestling, like a heel versus a face and stuff like that. And it's like, you don't want to do that. Like, and I can see that you're not a natural heel. It doesn't work. Or like if you're a natural heel and you want to be a face, it's like, it's not working. It's not working. And then I see people on, Twitter or whatever who are either artists or whatever. And it's like, I understand that you're trying to make a character for yourself, like your artist name, but like, it's not getting anywhere because it's not authentic to you.
Right.
It's not that like little extension of you. It's like a total left field type thing where it's like, now you have to be this person in public and then you have to be this person online, and then it just does, it clashes. And so like I've realized that when it comes to, again, wrestling and the way that people like the presentation and everything.
Yep. And it's like you look at, I think one of the easiest examples is like Roman Reigns, right? This dude who like, he gets quote unquote pushed, to the top a couple years ago. None of the fans are accepting him because it feels forced. Yeah. Everyone's like, dude, like we're cool with this dude, but like this doesn't, it's not him. This isn't anything that like, you're having him read a script, and people know when someone's reading a script, right? Just like if you're watching a Marvel movie and Iron Man ran into the scene and was like, oh no, we have to get Thanos now. Like people would be like, he doesn't believe what he's saying. It's the exact same thing. So for years, when Roman Reigns would come out and say something, everyone's like, yeah, man, you're just like, I'm sure you're a good guy. Yeah. But this doesn't feel like a cool character for you. And now look at him. Now he's huge heel in the business. He's like a bad guy, and obviously everybody now like thinks it's really cool to be a bad guy, so everyone now loves him. But it's like, for me, I am that person who like, I didn't hate him before, but I was like, this is boring to me. I just don't care. Now I'm like, I love this dude because it feels natural. When he goes out there and he's cutting this quote unquote evil promo on somebody, it sounds real. It sounds like this is just a badass dude who is just like, yeah, acknowledge me or I'll kick your ass. You know what I mean? Like, I love it. And he's not out there saying suffering succotash promos, and all this sort of like weird childish stuff. So it's like when you see that, you're like, this fits. This makes sense. And now I like it. And again, the same thing goes for, just like you were saying, those people that you see trying to market themselves on social media. You got to find what's authentic at your core. And then just like we were saying with the Stone Cold analogy, like turn the volume up to 11. What's the extension of you? And now if you want to present that in a marketable way, turn it up. Just find something, and it doesn't have to be all of you. Find something in you that says, I can relate to this, or I do believe in this. Because people are going to be able to see if you do or do not believe. Like, imagine if you were going up and performing and you didn't actually want to do it, but somebody at some point told you being a rapper would be cool, and you're like, I guess I have to try and be famous. Imagine if you got up on stage and you were just like, hey, what's up, everybody? Here's a song. People would see it. People would eat that up and be like, this is not you. Why are you doing this? We don't like it because we can tell that you don't. And that, I think, is like such a fundamental key to marketing and branding in any way. And I think like the one part of it, like we're talking about, is finding that core piece of authenticity that you can then brand and market with. I think the other piece is purpose and intention. That is like the other thing that I always talk with people about, is like, okay, do you actually want to do it? Do you actually care? Is it an extension of you? And then what's your intention behind it? This story that you're about to tell, or this thing that you're about to do, what's the purpose? And I think when people hear that, sometimes they think, what, am I supposed to want to change the world with everything I create? And it's like, no. When I say purpose, it does not mean grand, amazing purpose. It's just the intention. It's not even the result that you hope it gives. It's just, what are you making it with? It's like in the same way that if you're writing a song, you're probably going in it with the intention of like, is this a really heartfelt, like deep dive of a song? Or complete opposite. Am I just making this to maybe
want people to dance?
To maybe get it like played on the internet or something, or radio. You know what I mean? Like those intentions, neither is right or wrong. But it's like, if you set that intention ahead of time, then all of your moves, all your decisions can be made based around that. Then you're going to get a more authentic product.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like something, I'm going to keep bringing it back to wrestling because there's just so many easy examples, but like Bray Wyatt is one of my absolute favorite people, characters, you know, whatever. And obviously he's not with the company anymore.
Yeah.
Very excited to see where he
ends
going
up.
to end up.
He's going to kill wherever. And
there's only, at the time of us recording this, there's only a couple weeks until we're probably going to find out.
Yeah.
Oddly enough, his 90-day no compete is up around Halloween, which is very convenient for who he is. But like, he has been this like amazing new example for me because like I'm also a big horror movie fan.
Whew, not me.
So there's the first thing we don't have in common. But like, I'm a huge horror movie fan. Mm-hmm. So obviously his character completely walked straight out of a horror movie, right? So I was automatically just immediately attracted to his character when he first popped up back in like 2013, 2014. Mm-hmm. But I loved that it wasn't just, here's a dude dressed up in creepy shit walking out and being a monster. Yeah. There was story to it. Yeah. And he as an individual, as a person, puts intention into everything that he does.
Everything. Like, just his... I mean, to say, like, he is charismatic is not even, like, doing it justice. It's like, I believe everything. And he can go from, you know, like, the Fiend to, like, the Funhouse. And, like, his intention is just so on point. And, like, that's the thing that makes me believe it more than some of the other people that they've pushed to be like, oh man, he's supposed to be some big bad horror whatever, and it's like,
right,
don't feel it.
Yep. Yeah, because you can tell where the intentions and purpose is coming from. Like, and you can tell, like, you know, yes, do I really believe that there's an evil, you know, clown face wearing, you know, monster that takes over this human being? Of course I don't. Mm-hmm. But again, I also am not walking around believing that Thanos is snapping the universe into non-existence. It's the same thing. It's just entertainment. But it's like this weird blend of like real human creation, and then you're seeing the result on television every week. Yeah. And again, he's become this like just shining example of what I believe to be amazing storytelling, because I'm assuming whenever he was able to, you know, because obviously those people don't make all their own decisions for what they do on TV. But whenever he was able to, you could tell all the intention and purpose was there, of like even things that, you know, a painting that was hung on the wall of the Firefly Funhouse was his former house being burnt down from a past storyline, right? All the puppet characters all represented a different thing that tied in with him and his character. Yeah. All of it made sense. And to the normal eye, they'd be like, what the fuck is this? Yeah. Like, why is there a children's TV show on wrestling right now? What are they trying to do? But then if you dig a little bit deeper, you're like, no, but pay attention to the story. Yeah. Because this puppet character actually represents this past version of him, and this is why he treats it this way. Yeah. I love, you know, I just love like that aspect of being like, yeah, this is all, you know, WWE. This is all like the whole show and everything. Like, but inside of just his storyline, there's so many multiple different universes, or not one big universe that like has so many different layers to it that it's like, this is why he doesn't like so-and-so, and now so-and-so and so-and-so are teamed up together, and now got to take them down, and blah, blah, blah. And it's so just, it's really cool to be that layered. Mm-hmm. And like, ultimately, that's something that I want to do with like music and stuff. And I talk to some of my friends, and I'm like, create that Joey H universe, so somebody can listen to this album or like whatever and be like, oh, he meant that from there, and like I get the reference from the first album, and like my love for storytelling and stuff has always brought me there from different artists and stuff like that. Like, it's so cool. Yeah, I could not agree with you more on that, like, build your own universe type thing. You know what I mean? Like, again, we're talking about marketing and branding and all this sort of stuff, but like, build your own universe where I love Easter eggs. I love hidden meanings of things. Like, I'm so into that. And it's like, and I love when people tuck those into their art. So just like you said, if somebody listens to this album and they hear a reference that references something else, they're going to be like, that's from 3 albums ago.
Yeah.
Oh my God. And now he's talking about how he got past that thing. Like it just is. It's storytelling. Like, Bray Wyatt in the Firefly Funhouse match with John Cena. Like, sounds goofy, sounds silly. If somebody were to watch it, they'd be like, again, what the fuck is this? But then you look at the layers and you look at the meaning and you look at why these things are happening and how it happened and, all this sort of stuff. Like, I love when people, again, it's the intention and it's the purpose. And whenever I can do that with things, there's so many things I feel like I've done that with that nobody has ever noticed.
Yeah. And I don't think, so like, somebody may not notice now, but like, as things progress and everything, like somebody's going to pick up on, oh shit, like that was from here. Like this is the same voice from blank, or in this music video, or in this video, like there was this. And like, I'm like a very firm believer that when you commit to the story and everything, like it's going to come out. Like somebody's going to pick up on it, and it doesn't need to be like everybody, but I mean, we would love for it to be, but like,
right. But then the people like us,
it's like, oh shit, I got it. I got it.
It makes them feel like they're more a part of something.
Yeah.
When you're the one that's noticing, like, wait, this is a reference to this, and now I see how these things connect. Like, it makes you feel more special to be involved and be like, no, I get what they were trying to do. That's so cool. And of course, as a creator, and when anyone notices that stuff, it always makes you feel great, right? 'Cause you're like, oh man, like 1, you really paid attention, and that's awesome. But 2, the stuff I'm creating does have a larger purpose than just I'm puking up content. I'm just putting things out to put things out. It's like, no, this has a purpose. This has an intention. It has a deeper meaning that involves this. And like, if I tried to rack my brain right now for examples, I can't really think of any. But like, I have always been such a supporter and doer of that exact thing, of just like so many different art pieces and creations or whatever, whether it's for a client or whether it's for myself. I found so many ways to tuck little hidden meanings that like, this is going to happen in this, and it actually relates to this thing that I want to create in the future.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We're like in some of the short films I've been able to start shooting, I'm like making everything exist in like the same universe. You know what I mean? Where it's like people are going through the radio in a car on this, and I'm going to put a little snippet of something that's actually from another movie that I want to make, or like, or there's some scripts that I've written where like, people are going to go watch a movie and they're like, oh, what movie do you want to watch? Oh, is that the one where blah, blah, blah? And I would just give the explanation of a future movie that I want to make.
Wow.
You know what I mean? And it's just like, that might not sound that important or cool to somebody else, but to me,
but like when it happens,
I love that.
In like when people pay attention to that and get it, they're like, holy shit. Like that is like even Logic is really good at it. And I know like a lot of people have their opinions on Logic's music. I've been like a follower of his since probably 2012, 13ish.
Yeah.
So like for better or for worse, I've listened to mostly everything. And there's always just been like little hidden nuggets and stuff. And it's just like 2 albums ago, he's doing a skit where they play music. And he's like, no, you can't play that. That's the new shit. And then it turns it off. And then 2 albums later, I hear that same song. I'm like, whoa. He had this song made in 2015. And then it's on an album in 2018. But like fixed into the album. Like it, like stuff like that is so cool, and it like adds to the storytelling, the layers, in creating that universe.
Yep. Like I just got to have some fun with a skit that I made, like a Halloween themed skit where I actually got to kind of bring 2 universe versions of me together, through the magic of filmmaking and cutting and editing. But I did a podcast skit where me, just normal me. I was trying to conjure up the scariest podcast guests that I could, right, for Halloween. So I wanted to make a really cool Halloween episode. So like, I try a couple different things and it doesn't work. And I used to do this podcast called Poltergeist, which was where myself and a friend of mine, we would sit and we would review like bad or goofy horror movies, and we would just kind of retell them from our point of view. But that's actually a great example of storytelling, because I wanted to build it more than just like two kids talking about horror movies. So we started the universe build within that. We started being characters. We started adding these other characters and this underlying story and all this sort of stuff. Point being, we used to do that, and I brought those two things together into this podcast world, where in the skit, I accidentally conjure up that other version of me and my co-host. And so they pop up on that end of the table, and they were like, the whole story is for that podcast is we were trapped in like kind of an ethereal dimension, you know, and we were stuck there, forced to podcast, and we couldn't escape. So somehow I free us, and then there's like, you know, a back and forth between both versions of me of like, oh my God, and then I freak out and like send them back to wherever they were. But like that, like to me or to anybody else that, you know, the people that aren't in on it probably don't care at all. They're like, why is Ross acting both of these parts? I don't understand. But to me, it was so much fun to blend these worlds. Like, yes. You know what I mean? It was fun to be like, oh, that's Poltergeist Ross. And this is what you don't hear, Ross. Yeah. And these two are interacting, and now we're mending these worlds and blending them together. So whenever there's options or opportunities rather to do stuff like that, or when I see people do stuff like that, I absolutely love it. Yeah. Because I've always, just like what spawned this entire love fest for, you know, branding and wrestling and all this sort of stuff, I've, for some reason, always felt that exact same way, where I always took it so seriously. So I literally love hearing you say that, because I did the exact same thing.
It's hilarious. Like even people ask me like, what? Like, to go back to video games and stuff, people ask me why I can't make myself in video games. Well, one, I'm 5'5". You can't even make a person in 2K that's 5'5". You can't do it. Two, like, I don't want to make myself. I want to make something different. And if that means, like, I don't know, if I'm playing Madden, like, let's make Rod Tidwell from Jerry Maguire. Like, let's do shit like that. Yep. I find that more entertaining than just making me.
Yeah. Oh, I would... Like I was never big into like football, but I like playing the football video games, and I would always find movie teams and make them in the video games. So I'm like, yeah, this would be fun. Why don't they exist in the video game? So I'll take so and so team from this movie that I like, and I will create them in Madden, and then I'll play as them, because the same thing you're saying. Yeah. Like it's fun to just realistically, it's just fun to create.
All right, I got one question. What's the like wildest thing that you've done, like video game wise, that's been like, if somebody saw that I did this, they would probably think I'm a lunatic?
I'm going to have to think about that. Maybe, I mean, creating like pro wrestling versions of me is pretty silly, but I think everybody does that. That's the whole point of being able to create a wrestler in those video games and taking them on storylines and stuff. Maybe trying to make a 4-scale version of, do you remember, were you ever familiar with like Bam Margera, the skateboarder? Yeah. Viva La Bam, Jackass, those shows. So I loved that when I was younger. So I tried to make a 4-scale create a skater park that was his entire house and compound. So I tried to build like the house, his warehouse, all the skate ramps. Like, it was probably terrible, but spent hours. Like, I'm talking like almost Minecraft level of like sitting and like building all these things with whatever I could. So off the top of my head right now, that's maybe one of the most outrageous. There might be more outrageous things, I'm sure, if I really thought about it. But that might be just from a time-consuming standpoint, and just the why would I want to recreate this exact thing when there's levels already made, and the attention to detail that I tried to put into it. That might be the craziest. Do you have one that's...
Yeah, I think, man, so in like Madden and NCAA football, you can like do something where you transfer the like you can have players go from college to the NFL.
Oh, that's okay.
And so it's like, all right, I have this running back from Ohio State or whatever, and then, you know, get them to Madden or whatever. But what I used to do is, this is so crazy, and this is like for a lot of sports games. I would make like spreadsheets. So like Google Sheets, and I'd be like Memphis Tigers. I'd put points, assists, rebounds. And every year, because I got so invested in like the players and stuff, I would like put their stats in there. And be like, and every year it's like, man, they're like 300 points away from being the number one leading scorer and shit like that.
Dude,
it took so much time, but like that's just it like goes to show like how wired I am as far as like
Yeah, and that's I would do similar things with like skate games or motocross games or even wrestling games. Like I would keep my own stats and history of so I would look and like if my brother and I were, months later changing our sponsors, I'd go back to our past page and be like, okay, well our past sponsor deals were these.
Boom.
And so I mean, I don't know, do you want to rework a deal with that new sponsor? And he's like, 6 years old. He's like, yeah, sure. Like, and I'm like, all right, well, I guess let's offer the deal. Like,
yeah.
So taking it further than what even the video game is programmed for, I would definitely do that same thing. Same thing with like the figure feds, with like wrestling. Mm-hmm. I would have notebooks filled with title histories.
Yeah.
And storylines that I would just sit and play out, which is funny. I don't know how many podcasts you listen to. Do you remember Zack Ryder?
Zach, yeah.
So he's a huge wrestling figure collector.
Okay.
He and Kurt Hawkins, if you remember him. Obviously, they've since been released from WWE, but they do figure feds and figure collecting still as adults, and like they're like proof to honestly a lot of people. They've built up a really really cool community of people who are like, oh, it's cool to still do this as an adult. Yeah. Because you're still just being creative and you're still just having fun. Yeah. Fuck whoever doesn't think it's like. Yeah. And these are like two like grown like beefy men who are like pro wrestlers, and they're like, no, yeah, I just purchased this action figure for $15,000 because it's one of 20. Yeah. And I really want it in my collection. And they do a podcast called the Figure Wrestling Federation, where they do exactly what we did as kids. They will they'll draft from wrestling figure options that they have. They'll draft, they'll build their rosters, and then they did a whole season through last year that was so fun to listen to, where they drafted the rosters and then they just fantasy booked their own shows. Mm-hmm. And then they went head to head at like a big, WrestleMania type event at the end of it, and then people got to vote on like who they thought won the. So I don't know if you ever listen to podcasts or that sounds interesting, but like literally there's like genuine proof of like, no, yeah, that silly stuff we would do as kids, like it's still fun to like listen to. Like
and like I remember probably this had to be in like, because I think I was either in middle school or early high school, but like I know how much I used to game and like create storylines and video games and stuff like that. And I saw these people on YouTube basically creating characters and doing the same shit I was doing, but putting it online. And I was like, man, I'm sitting on this computer for hours just watching somebody else do the same exact shit I'm doing right now. Like,
yep.
And
I think the coolest thing about that and those examples that we just gave is like, it's proof that if something is cool to you, it's cool to someone else.
Yeah.
Even if it's not cool to everybody around you or your friends or whatever, there's a market for anything. There is somebody who is going to think that that's cool. Like last year I started watching, or maybe the year before, I can't remember. I got introduced to, I'm sure you're familiar with the game Grand Theft Auto, right? Everybody knows that. There's a thing called Grand Theft Auto Roleplay. So
I've heard stuff about that, but like I haven't gotten into it.
So I've become like addicted to. I love it. I love watching it because it's just these role play servers where like when people are allowed to join these servers, they go in and you have to follow the rules of normal life.
It's like, you getting kicked.
which is so strange to think of, like this video game where you can do anything. People are turning it into like, you better stop at that stop sign or you will get pulled over. Yeah. But obviously things can be silly and wacky, and you have to play your character. Whatever character you have decided to play, whether you're a cop or a civ or a pizza maker or a dump truck driver, whatever it is, you have to commit to that in whatever scenario you're put in. And there's this group of guys that I've started watching that play pretty often, and I have just loved watching that. And streaming is a huge thing now. Like people watch people play anything. But GTA roleplay has become such a fun thing to watch because it's just so goofy and outrageous. Even when they're being serious, I'm still like, they're really pulling this guy over and giving him a ticket for speeding in this video game. Like, that's so funny. And then when they try and get away, and it's like, then it becomes like you get to watch, like, it's almost like watching Cops, but without the hard part of seeing real people's lives be hurt. You know what I mean? Because it's like, I haven't tried to watch Cops as an adult, but I know if I did, I would just feel overly empathetic for everyone, and I'd be like, this is not fun TV. I don't like watching this. Like,
no, I'm good.
But with GTA roleplay, you can watch it and it doesn't matter because you can also hear them like trying to stay in character, and like they might laugh off microphone real quick and get back into it, and it's like it makes it fun. So you get to watch this fun version of quote unquote real life that has no actual real life consequences, right? And of course, outrageous things can happen where it's like somebody can go ramp a car into a lake, and you're like, that was really funny, and no one actually got hurt. Like it doesn't really matter. So in that same note, I'm like, oh, these are people who are kind of building their own universe and building these characters because they'll play reoccurring characters. Like sometimes, they'll log on and they'll stream like, hey, I'm playing as so-and-so. And today, and that so-and-so has a bunch of fans online like, oh, I love when you play as this character because it just gets crazy. Or like there's the group of guys that I watch they'll play as cops pretty often, but they just play as like ridiculous, just dumb, idiotic cops. And so it's always hilarious to watch. And they just build their own characters within that, where they have like their sergeant who is always in control of everything. So while they're chasing like whoever, like whatever criminal, whatever that they're chasing, one of them will act like Sarge. And so he'll like tune in through the radio and be like, hey, what are you guys doing out there? What's going on? And they're all like, oh, hey, Sarge, we're in the middle of a chase right now. And like he'll just say something stupid and be like, yeah, go ahead and pit him. Take him out right now. So then they'll like jump on the dude and all this sort of stuff. And it's like, even me as a viewer, it's not just like, oh, they're being outrageous in Grand Theft Auto. I'm like, when's Sarge going to pop up and say something stupid? Because then you start to expect those things. And I love when any sort of art form does that. And again, going back to the video game thing, like, it's just so fun to me to hear that somebody else took that stuff just as seriously as I did for no reason. Like,
I love it.
So was that like... So you're doing that with video games, and you're being super creative, right, the whole time. Like, does that stick with you even through like high school and all that sort of stuff? When is there ever a time where it's like, because I know I did this, I stopped doing the Figure Wrestling Federation, and I stopped doing the rosters, and I stopped doing, playing video game sponsorships with my little brother. Once you hit those teenage years, and you're like, oh wait, this isn't cool. I gotta do something else. So it's like, was there ever that point for you where do you feel like you lost the spark of creativity at all, or did you start to use it in different ways?
Just use it in different ways. Like, instead of me creating wrestlers and stuff and like creating different characters and stuff like that, I put a lot of that towards music, as far as, creating who I am, or even just like the way that I would make like Google Sheets for sports and stuff. I would do that for my music, and then be like, all right, so here's how my song did on SoundCloud last month. Here's how it needs to do this month. Here's how much promo I need to put into it in order to get to this level. And then I would do like a whole bunch of stuff. Like, I have like hundreds of just spreadsheets of just me comparing different numbers and things like that. And that was like the thing that I get my like my high off of, like that creativity from there.
Yeah. What's cool about that is technically structuring yourself as a business.
Yeah.
But it comes from just a creative place.
Data research.
Yeah, like, because I feel like that's a big thing, that when it comes to, again, blending the worlds of creativity and business, that's a thing I think a lot of people also not get wrong, because who am I to say what's wrong or right, but like maybe get too confused about is they almost see them as just totally separate. Yeah. Are you either creative or are you business? Because I don't know if you can be both. Like I've heard that before, where they're like, oh, well, I can see you focus more on being creative. No, I took the business route, but you're just a creative guy, right? And it's like, No. There's
Yeah.
actually a ton of, again, structure, intention, purpose, reason behind a lot of the stuff that I do. And it's okay for you to not identify it. But just like everything you said, still using those spreadsheets into your personal goals and growth and dreams and plans, that's effectively adding structure and a foundation to how you do business.
And it like also keeps me very it's like it keeps me very childlike. It keeps me very much like not taking everything so seriously. So like I know a lot of people who, when we talk about like data research and analytics and stuff, they like really get overwhelmed with it. I've got to a point where like it doesn't really overwhelm me anymore because I've put these pieces together and everything. I've made these spreadsheets and I've looked at it so much that to me it's just like, oh, the Spotify numbers are up today. Sweet. Why? What happened yesterday? Was I on something or whatever? And like I'm able to look at that and be like, oh, okay, I had the show, or so-and-so said that they listen to my music all the time and they Shazammed it or whatever. Or like I pay attention to that stuff where it gives me a reason to know what's going on. Like, what's the story behind that? And like a few months ago, my friend played one of my songs on a radio station. I want to say Shade 45, Nicole Knickknack, one of the best. She played the song on the radio, and then I go on Apple Music the next day, and it's like 55 Shazams on this song. And I was like, oh, makes sense. But like if I didn't look at it, but like 2 weeks later or a month later or whatever, I'd be like, where'd that come from? I have no idea. Mm-hmm. And so like it really keeps me very just childlike, and it gives me that same joy of like playing the games and creating those storylines and everything like that.
Yep. And I feel like that, it's a cliche saying at this point, but like people talk about it all the time of, never lose the childlike wonder or imagination or whatever. And a lot of people do, mm-hmm. because it's very easy to get caught up in, the machine, the system, whatever. And then do your job, and then you go home and you've got to survive and you got to pay bills and you got to do all this stuff. It's very easy to lose the childlike wonder, right? Or the imagination. But I can say, exactly just what you said is like, I'm glad that for some reason I didn't.
Yeah.
Because it's awesome when you can take those things that you did as a kid that were just out of imagination and fun and killing time, whatever. But now they have a different reason as to how they work for us as adults. Because again, like I've probably said too much at this point, but we're talking about it so much, but like I do all of the same things that I did when I was a kid. They're just more intentional now, and they produce real results. It's not just me looking at a championship title history in my notebook and I'm the only one that sees it. Now it's me being like, I can write this story for this short film and this is how it's going to turn into a feature, or this is why I'm going to caption this thing this way because it actually means this, and I can tease this or market this. Like, it's all being reused. Yeah. And I wish, this is a grand wish, but I wish people didn't lose that aspect of things they enjoyed as a child. But I think too many people are like, I don't want to be a kid anymore. That's stupid. Like, blah, blah, blah. Like, fucking, that's childlike. And it's like, what? But do you have fun?
Yeah. Like,
just,
I feel like a lot of people lose the imagination. They lose the love of imagining and just thinking of I don't know, like creating something new, and people are very much like, I need to get to this next level, I need to get this job, I need to do blah blah blah. And it's like it's cool to imagine still. It's cool. Like it's cool to create these different, things in your head that could manifest to something totally different in your life now. That like I learned so much from just playing video games. Like again, doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. I learned that from Pokemon. Like, I remember playing Misty And I was like, and for those who don't know Pokemon, Misty is a water Pokemon, uses Starmie, used to kill me all the time. But I had Rock type and Charizard. I would lose all the time. And so I was like, all right, I have to be smart. I have to understand, like, evolving. I need to understand, like, leveling up. I need to understand that my Geodude can't be at level 3. Like, I need to build my team up and everything like that. Like, I learned so much from just video games. Mm-hmm. And I would be, like, kidding myself to say that it wasn't, like, a huge part of my, like, upbringing and where I am today. Like,
yeah,
I don't know math, but I do know batting averages. And, like, I'm not the best at math, but I do know, like, in 2K, if somebody's shooting 27% from the 3-point line, they can't shoot threes. Why am I doing that? So, like, I mean, it's just really just made so much of me, like, who I am today, and, like, a big part of my development.
Yeah, 100% same. Like, I couldn't sit and tell somebody what to do to go make $1 million business. But I can tell you a bunch of things to do to make it look like you've already got that $1 million. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, that's where we can make the trade-off, and then maybe that sets you up to actually go, make it. It's like, I can't give you the direct answers, but I know a lot of random stuff around it that will actually kind of maybe lead to that.
Yeah. And that's all from just keeping the imagination fresh and, like, enjoying things that challenge me to imagine. Mm-hmm. Like, go get a Sims game today and play it, and you have literally an open green field, and you have to create a house for your Sim. What does that look like? Like, what is the focus? Is it going to be like a big master bedroom, or is it going to be a smaller room so you can have room for activities and stuff like that? And, like, now that's how I envision my life. I quit my job because I wanted to have more time for me to create and more time for me to be who I am, as far as, like, what I imagine in my 24 hours of a day. Like, now it's like, all right, I have to create a schedule. I have to create what does Joey H do? I have to create what that looks like for people. And that challenged me, and it's made me grow. It's made me better.
Do you feel like you have these conversations with people a lot, where, like, you'll find yourself being that kind of, like, encouraging, like, no, like, try, go buy a Sims game and just build a house, or write down your thoughts, or journal something, or just attempt a hobby, like. Mm-hmm.
Sometimes, and then sometimes I feel like I'm just speaking in a way that, like, not that other people don't get, but there's difference between, like, my creative friends and my friends who do art, and then my friends who don't do art. And, like, to tell them, like, yeah, man, go play Sims. It's like, why would I do that when I'm focused on stocks? Or why would I do that when I'm focused on getting another rental property or whatever? And it's like, cause you gotta just, create something, like, and I feel like sometimes people just, I don't want to say they don't understand, but it's hard to speak that way to some people, and then they don't get it. Where I can tell some of my other friends, like, hey, man, quit your job. You have so much more time to do so many other things. Like, do you want to, like, go ride your bike from 12 o'clock to 4 o'clock? Cool, you can go do that. And then the next day have literally all work from 8 o'clock in the morning to 8 p.m. But, like, it changes. It fluctuates. Like, you just do totally different things.
It's hard to talk to people about, like, because it does sound like such an imaginary thing. And I get it. I'm not saying life is easy for everyone to just make any decision they want every day. I totally get that. Mine hasn't been easy. You know what I mean? Nobody's has been easy to just, like, wake up one day and be like, oh, I'm going to do whatever I want, blah, 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 imagination land. But, like, it is so hard to talk to people about that because, it's like, dude, I can't go play Sims. I have to go to work.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, but, like, what about your time after work? Well, I have to eat dinner and I have to do this. And it's like, well, but remember that you can make the choices to choose to do or not do certain things that might bring you more happiness. And it's hard to break people out of that sometimes. Like, it's hard to get people to not only believe in themselves, but believe that breaking their cycle is safe.
I remember having, and this is like kind of weird, and I don't want to say this is like a blessing in disguise because of COVID or whatever, because I don't want to find any silver linings in this, because people have died and everything. But I remember when I was at my old job, and I was basically like, man, this 8-hour workday is like, it doesn't make sense in 2019. It doesn't make sense. There's so many different ways we can like work. And then I was like, how come it's 8 hours of sleep and 8 hours of work? It doesn't make sense. Like, it just, to me, it didn't make much sense. And then I'm talking to some other people, and they're just like, I want to work from home. And it's like, why can't you go work from home? You could do the same thing here. And at the time, it was like, no, this is structure. This is exactly how things have always been. It's tradition, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, well, you don't know me, because I'm not traditional. And we had this conversation, and it got to a point where I was just like saying the same thing over and over again. And I caught myself just being like, well, that's stupid. Well, that's stupid. Well, that's stupid. Well, that's stupid. Why can't we do it this way? And I had to like end that conversation, and then COVID happens. And then it's like, people are working from home. People are working less, or we start to realize that a lot of things that were tradition and were supposed to be like this way and this way only. No, we don't.
Yeah.
And so, like, that's kind of how that conversation there is kind of how I feel when I talk to people about, imagination.
Yeah. And that's imagination. But that's like, I mean, I even had a similar, understanding that I came upon like during COVID, because it's like, for me, I've been totally freelance for a couple of years. So when everyone was ordered to stay home, I was like, well, this doesn't really change a lot for me, because I work from home most of the time anyway, right? But like, so while there wasn't that major change for me, and I literally was like, cool, I don't have to go anywhere. I kind of get a little bit of a break, unfortunate circumstances, but okay, I don't have to feel guilty for not going and doing something today if I don't want to, right? But what ended up happening is once things started opening back up and I started getting video production work again, it was this eye-opener for me where I went from having nothing to, luckily, a bunch of work right when we were allowed to do stuff again. But it proved to be too much to go from 0 to 100 immediately. And all it took was the very first project that myself and my crew did. It went really bad. And then it created a domino effect where every project after that was like, not that great, bad experience, right? Quality-wise, visual, it's totally fine, but that doesn't really matter to me, right? It matters how it went, how it made me feel. So at the end of this like week's worth of projects, I was completely drained. And I was like, why do I even like doing this? And I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to be a video director. I don't want to be a filmmaker. I don't want to do this. This sucks because this is how it is. But what that did was cause me to step back, look at what I didn't like about it. And I realized, like, even though, yes, for years, creatively, I'm getting some fulfillment out of making these cool projects or music videos or commercials for people, whatever. Like, yeah, I'm getting to create with those. But I'm still creating for someone else. I wasn't totally creating for me. And that's what that made me realize. Is I was like, I don't do anything for me. I consistently just like, I got caught up in my own machine. I built this machine of like, I want to be self-employed so bad. And now I got to work and say yes to everything and take on every project and every client. I have to do it. Then when I started doing it, I was like, it's working. This is awesome. But then I forgot that we always are supposed to change and evolve.
Wow.
So I forgot to do that. And then I was like, oh, this is the reset point. And then the next step was I need to create for me. So that's when I finally started taking these stories that I was just writing scripts of on my computer And now I was like, oh, why don't I just start shooting some of these? I can still do client projects, but if I'm balancing it out with stuff for myself, for fun, for creative, imaginative reasons, that's going to help balance it out. And then once I started doing that, I felt fine.
Yeah.
I felt better. And I learned what these new levels were that I needed to start going up. I learned these new skills and new things that I was kind of like almost hiding from myself for so long because, again, I got caught up in my own machine. And I think that is, and there's plenty of things that I think, quarantine pandemic, kind of brought up that a lot of people are like, oh yeah, this is kind of stupid the way that we do this, huh? Maybe this should change. And, who knows what exactly is going to change. But I do, whether it's from unfortunate reasons or not, I do enjoy that people are starting to learn, like identify those things of like, oh wait, why am I working almost every hour of my week and I don't have any hobbies? I don't have any enjoyment.
Yeah. Like what, like I said to somebody like a while ago, I feel bad about saying it because it was just me being a dickhead at the time. But I was just like, I don't know what you do. You don't do anything. You like have no hobbies or anything like that. And I felt bad saying it, but like in the moment I was kind of trying to say like, do something outside of just this structure. It seems like everything is so predictable and everything is so like, go to work at 8, get off around 4 to 5, getting home, eating, FaceTime, sleep. And then I was like, for me, I don't work that way. I'm like very spontaneous with different things. So it was just like trying to, not like challenge them, but be like, explore, do so much more than just like this structure.
Right. And it's hard to try and articulate those things sometimes. Because again, for the reasons we were saying earlier, it's like not everybody's going to hear it the way that you're trying to tell them. Like, what do you do? And it's more so like, hey, what if you found something?
Yeah.
It's not like you're lazy and you suck.
Yeah.
It's hey, I think you're capable of more. And I can see it in you. What if you did too?
Yeah.
That's really what it is when it comes down to it. And that's not trying to make it sound like some righteous thing of like, oh, I the creative, am so much more amazing than you. It's not that, but it's just like, I do think there's something to having those real conversations with people and reminding them maybe of who they really are, who they could be, or hey, I see this in you. Mm-hmm. Do you? And I think if you pursued this, like, I really think it could work out. Or if you pursued it and you find out you hate it, all right, cool. Yeah. I'm wrong. You tried something different at least. You tried to open a bakery for a month and it didn't work, and now you found out you hate baking. Like, it's fine.
And like, and like just trying things. Trial and error has been my biggest and best life lesson of whatever. It's just like, try it. If you don't like it, you won't do it tomorrow. But if you really like it, you'll do it. Like, it's funny because I'm helping these kids out at a middle school now with Wave. We amplify voices. And right now we're doing dance. And they're middle school, so I understand, like, people have, like, insecurities. And they're like, I don't want to dance in front of my classmates because, well, if they laugh at me type thing. And especially with art stuff or anything that has to do with self-expression, they don't want to seem kind of weird. Well, I was talking to someone, she's like, I don't really like dancing. I'm like, so what do you like? She's like, I like singing. I'm like, all right, cool. Well, next week we're doing singing, but right now we're doing dancing. And like, I'm like, I didn't know that I liked choir when I was younger. I quit band, and I tried band. I wasn't good. I got kicked out. Then I got into choir, and then from there, everything progressed and led me to music. It led me to being on stage. Every step of the way, band, loved being on stage. Choir, loved being on stage. And loved the aspect of performing and performing as a unit with people. Theater, I really love I love entertaining people. Like, so now that it led me to poetry and music, and then it was like, oh man, this is where I need to be. But I never knew if I wouldn't have like tried it. If my friends wouldn't have been like, nah, bro, it's not weird to be in theater. Come on, be in theater with us. And now my life is to entertain people, or most of it.
Yeah, yeah. So what was that you mentioned that like was it during pandemic that you decided to walk away from like normal 9 to 5 job?
This was like right before. This was literally coming up on 2 years. So October 31st of 2019 was my last day.
Okay.
And then I was like, all right, I'm gearing up 2020. I'm releasing an album, and then I'm going to go on tour, and then I'm going to be out of here, just performing a whole lot. And life was like, nah, put a hold on things. And like just learned how to just kind of flow with it. But I'm thankful, not thankful, again, no silver linings. I'm thankful because it made me realize that I can record myself. It made me realize that I can be self-sufficient. I can do different things. Let me try some more things. Maybe I don't need to just get into this whole wheel of like release an album, go on stage, perform, blah, 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 and then get off stage and then write music and then do the whole cycle over again. Paint. Go do some more creative things. Like find some other things that you enjoy to do or you don't know that you like, and try that out. And that was basically a lot of last year. Like I haven't ridden a bike in fucking like 16 years, basically. Like I haven't ridden a bike since I was younger. And then now, like, that's one of my things I do. Walk, bike, and I found a lot of joy in it. I found a lot of peace in it. It's something that I use to, like, clear my mind, use it for, you know, mental health and stuff like that. Like, I wouldn't have known that had it just been, like, music, performing all the time. So
never trying something outside your comfort zone.
Yeah.
Never using that imagination to think about like what are other things that maybe could just be a hobby of mine. Like that's something I'm bad at, is letting things, and I'm slowly getting better because again over the last year that was again very, very similar. That was a thing that I tried to do. I was like, do I have hobbies or do I just have a bunch of career goals? Like I don't want to get caught up in my own machine. So you know, I started looking for and picking up different hobbies, but I'm trying to get better at not looking at anything that I enjoy as a huge new career goal.
Yeah.
Like, and I think that goes back to how it sounds like both of us were as kids, where you're playing that video game and it has to be this grander thing than just having fun with a video game. It's like, what if it was a universe, and what if it was a brand, and what if it was this? I catch myself a lot when, you know, for me, if I was like, I want to start riding bikes, I'm going to be like, how good could I get at riding a bike? And what if why wouldn't I just try to join a race or a bike marathon or something? Like, why wouldn't I do that? Like, set the bigger goal.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know. Do you ever get caught up in that where you're like, hobbies are hobbies. Let's just like reel it in a little bit. Cause I'm stuck on that all the time.
Even like in just sports, like I played sports my entire life. So, I mean, I don't know did you play sports and stuff?
Up until high school.
Okay.
Yeah, I did just baseball and then wrestling, of course, because, you know. And then, yeah, basically like sophomore year of high school is when I was like, I don't like sports anymore.
And like, they had, I mean, obviously, you know, like with you need to push yourself to the limit, blah, blah, blah. I caught myself last year. It was raining, and I was like going for a jog, and I'm about a mile away from, or not a mile away from my house, just starting to run. And it starts to rain, and I was like, yeah, gotta push through this is just gonna build character. I was like, what the fuck am I doing, man? I'm doing this for mental health and to get out of the house in the middle of a pandemic. I'm not doing this to go train to run the 100-meter dash. Go back home. It's cool. Like, it's totally fine to just return back home and chill. And not expect this to be something like I'm training for anything.
Yep.
And like to go, there's things I don't want to be like this big painter, but I do enjoy painting stuff. I do enjoy getting a glass of wine and just going around and be boop, 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 and making different lines and stuff and see what I can create from there. I'm a big 5-minute craft person, so I see all the videos and I'm like, oh man, that's a cool way. I didn't know people used stuff like this to paint. Like, and that's kind of just what it's been like.
Yeah. Are you familiar with Studio 614 or, why can I not, Makers? Like here in Columbus. So it's like, literally the only reason I'm asking you is because one, I just had the owner of those businesses on for the podcast. And two, so it's all fresh in my mind, and you saying that you enjoy painting and kind of the craft making, like that's literally what her two brands do is like their social gatherings of like, hey, come and we're going to paint and drink together. And then the Makers is you go in and you choose this like craft-esque thing, and you all kind of like can sit, and it's like half a bar, half a like just chill and like build something with your friends. So you saying those things just like spawned that. So I was like, I wonder if he's ever been or familiar with those places, because it sounds like you're explaining almost exactly what those things do. So maybe check them out at some point. But yeah, that is a thing that I have been trying to reel myself in on, is not everything has to be some huge goal.
Yeah.
Like, as much as I'm like, I want people to find hobbies and use their imagination and be creative, I do that, but then I'm also like, these hobbies will turn into business ventures.
Yeah.
Like, what can I do? I need to take it to the top. And it's not just about the making money thing, but it's more so like, I want this to be so legit.
Yeah.
Just like playing the video games and writing down the sponsorships and all that stuff in the notebooks. I'm like, this has to be legit.
Yeah.
I want it to be legit. So how can I, like, if I started painting, I would literally have to be like, all right, now don't go and you don't need to do an art show with these paintings now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'd be like, but that'd be so cool.
Yeah, I'm like, wait a minute. So if I have like all these and I have like 10 paintings, I could go in a gallery.
Now see, that's where it gets weird for me, because I've thought those exact same things, and I'm like, okay, where's the fine line between, am I taking this too far, or am I just giving myself a new life experience that I can say that I did? Because like I've been big on that in the last year, and this has been around forever. This is not new, some genius idea that I came up with, obviously. But I've been like actually making a, I guess, bucket list. You know what I mean? Where I'm like, these are things that I don't have to do, but I think would be fun to experience.
Yeah.
And literally on that list is like, have an art show. Not because I want to be some world-renowned artist, but because I'm like, I do and can make certain types of art that I think would be so fun just to say, my art's at this gallery, and whoever shows up, and it's there it is, just to say, I did that.
Yeah. And I think that's pretty cool, and like, again, that keeps things fresh, where like, again, you never know what can come from you just trying something out. And like one of my best friends, Hakeem, he just does everything. Like everything. It's like he paints, he learns how to DJ, learns how to play guitar, and it's just so inspiring, because it's like, for me now, I'm like, man, I want to learn how to do this. I want to learn how to do that. Now I'm going to get a whole bunch of biking equipment and stuff and look like Lance Armstrong on a bike or some shit. But like, if I find out that I really like it, then I'm going to continue to do it. And again, it's a bucket list thing. It's like, I did that. And I enjoyed it. And now I can, now like I can also, how do I say this? So the same way like Hakeem inspires me to continue to do other things, somebody's going to see me and be like, oh, well, Joe's been painting. Joe's quit his job. He does music full time. Now he's helping with kids and stuff like that. And that may inspire them to go and do more things and get outside their comfort zone or whatever. And like, that's ultimately what I want to do, is inspire people. So
yeah, 100% on that exact same train. Now, when did rapping come up for you? Like, when did that become one of those things where you were like, oh, I actually really want to do this. I want to try it, and I actually want to keep doing it.
So I've always been like into poetry and stuff, and I liked listening to music, not just to hear like the beat, but I like really like to analyze the lyrics and stuff. And then I want to say when I was younger, it was like oh, go on A to Z lyrics and look them up and be like, oh, they're talking about this, and point the references and stuff. So that was probably like 5th or 6th grade that I've really like paying attention to lyrics and stuff in music videos. And then in middle school, honestly, it just came from my middle school, Brady Middle School up in Pepper Pike. They were like, you can do anything for this project. Anything. You can make a diorama, you can write a paper, you can make a song, you can do anything. I was like, all right, I'm about to make a rap song about science. And after that, it was like, all right, I made the rap song about science. Let me make a rap song about me in 6th grade or 7th grade. And then from there, it just came to me writing my own poetry, writing my own lyrics. And a lot of it was just like middle school, teenage angst stuff. But like, I really enjoyed it. And at the time, I knew I was about to be in the major leagues and in sports and stuff. So it was like my identity became like, I'm the music. I'm like the music guy, and I'm the one that shares the new underground Cleveland music with my friends. I'm the one that burns CDs and stuff. But I also like really enjoy making it too. But I didn't really share it with anybody until later on in high school when I got a little bit more confident and got a little bit better. And from there, it's just like, going to college, I went to Denison University, and that was like a really hard moment for me as far as like, I've always had an identity, always. Growing up, it was like if I was the kid that plays baseball or in Boy Scouts or in theater or in choir or something, and then when I got to Denison, it was like, it's nothing. It's like I'm a student, and I'm trying to make this music thing happen, but I'm not really like 100% in it. And I'm kind of like 1 foot in, 1 foot out type thing. And so I just quit everything. Like I quit. I was supposed to try to join a jazz a cappella singing group. Quit that. Barely went to class. And like really it was just like, I need to find something that's going to make me feel whole. And so I was like, all right, let's go 100% into music right now. 100%. I want to be the rapper on campus. I want to be the one who's like shooting music videos and stuff on campus that somebody be like, oh, who's that weird dude making music videos? And then 10 years later, it's like, oh, I went to school with him type shit. And like, that was like my freshman and sophomore years when I was like, oh yeah, this is what I want to do. And then getting back onto stage and performing in front of people gave me that same feeling of when I was doing choir and doing shows in theater. I was like, that was cool back then, and I loved it then. Now, I love it now. Like, this is where I black out on stage. Like, a different person takes over for this 45 minutes, or at the time, it was like 15 minutes, but like this time, I am not here. This is just heart and soul taking over.
Yeah. So did you finish college, or was there? Okay, so you.
Yeah.
What was like? Was it a degree that you were like, yeah, no, I'm gonna go do this thing, or what did it have to do with music?
It was communication,
okay.
And it was kind of just like get a degree, and if I ever need it, I got it. But I remember like, and I tell people this with my mom. I remember being in the car with her after my sophomore year, and I was just kind of like, what would you think if I like just quit school and just worked on music? She didn't say anything at all, and I was like, okay. I picked up, that I'm gonna finish, and from then on out, it was just like everything. From now, it's like use school to gain fans, use school to learn about different things in music. Take all the music classes. So history of bluegrass, history of jazz, history of Latin music, history of rock and roll. Like take all those classes, and then also learn about, you know, life, and learn about different people, learn about different experiences and stuff like that. Like, I know a lot of people say the whole like fuck school, blah 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 type thing, but like the person I am now is because I went to that school. Like, I went there and learned about a whole bunch of different people, and like my ideas and morals and stuff shifted because I was just around a bunch of people that I didn't know. And I think it made me a better writer. It made me understand like how important my lyrics are. It made me realize how important my voice is, and everything like that. And it ultimately just was the best decision for me to stay, to do what I needed to do.
Yeah. Well, that's always interesting for me to hear what people's like I always ask about people's timeline between like high school and college and then real world, you know, because it's always, those are always kind of the big decision makers of like, oh, were you forced into school? Did you want to go to school? Is it a degree that you actually use? Or is it like you look back and what did you learn from school? What did you not learn from school? Like all this sort of things. Because there's always so many like formative decisions being made during that time of like, is this where I leave the creativity behind and I pursue this thing and then maybe find it later, or, you know, vice versa, you know, whatever that may be. So it stuck with you.
Yeah.
Through school.
And like with the communication degree, I learned so much about writing press releases and being professional. Like just so many different things I learned as far as forming an email to send to a professor, and like how that can be like me sending a email to, I don't know, Ross to see if I can get on the podcast, or send an email to a writer for a blog and say how I can get my music on there. I learned a lot of that stuff and how to form all that stuff through school, sending, writing papers and forming that. Like,
well, I think that's such an important, like, it's important to have perspective on those things. To like, yes, like I never went to college, so I didn't deal, you know, with any of that sort of stuff, but or, you know, those decisions and all that sort of stuff. But I do think that in those instances, right, when you're in college or a job that maybe you don't like or whatever, it's like when you can have that perspective of, okay, at least in this situation, what can I take away from it?
Yeah.
What can I learn from it and not just give all of myself to it? And then once I learn something, like what's my next step? What's the change that I can make? And I think that perspective is so important to have when you can identify those things of, even if you're like not elated about the idea of school or, okay, I guess I should get this degree and whatever, you're still finding the things that matter within that. You're still like, oh, I'm learning this, I'm finding this out. And now you can look back and it's not like I wasted 4 years in college, it sucks, blah, blah, blah. You're like, no, I learned these things.
Yeah.
And even if I'm not totally, you know, I don't have a job, quote unquote, in my degree or whatever, this is how I'm using it. This is how I'm using the experience and what I learned from those things. And I think that that's just an awesome thing to hear, and like a super important thing for other people to hear.
Yeah. And like, I even learned how to embrace failures. Like, I learned how to not take everything so seriously. Like, Denison is a very prestigious school, academics and everything like that. And I remember seeing people get 92% on papers and tests and be upset. And I was just like, I got a 65. And like, for me, I was just like, that stresses you out so much to get 8 points off. And like, for me, I was just like, I never want to be that way with anything in my life. As far as music, if it doesn't go number one, or if I don't get 1,000 streams in the first day or whatever, or if I don't get a whole bunch of downloads or whatever, or if I don't have a sold out show, I never want to look that disturbed. So I've kind of had like, bringing it back to like the child like thing. I just don't take a lot of things so super seriously. And I learned that from, not learned that, but like school taught me so much about that, where it's just like, enjoy the journey of this, and don't take everything so to heart. Don't take everything so like life or death or pass or fail when it comes to like, I guess like the validation or a letter grade or attendance or anything like that. Like, kind of just live in not be carefree, but don't let that stuff like beat you down too much.
Yeah. So on that, you know, on this journey up to this point, and like even like looking forward, like now like you're performing, you left, you know, a job that you weren't comfortable in, and you're getting to, you know, you're finding these hobbies and all that sort of stuff. Like looking forward, like what do you want life to start shaping up as? Like, and even what are new things that you even want to try? Like,
I mean, kind of just like, I definitely want to perform like forever. Like that's something that I really want to do in whatever capacity it is. Like maybe it's acting, and something that I'm really starting to understand is like, again, evolving, and the thing that I am now may not be the same thing that I am next year or 2 years. Again, like, so with Denison in school, I didn't really like school. I didn't like going to classes. I didn't like high school. I didn't like going to classes. I didn't do homework often. Everything about the classroom and standardized testing and all that stuff bothers me. I don't like it. And it's crazy that like my mom would be like, you should go and be a substitute teacher. You would be great. You would be a light to all these kids and blah, blah, blah. And you'd be special. You'd be a great teacher. And I'm like, nah, I want to be a rapper. I want to do this. I want to be on stage. And if I connect to these kids through music, from them hearing me, then cool. I'm cool with that. I'll be a teacher on stage. I'll be a teacher through people following my music. And now I'm in classrooms right now helping out middle schoolers with things like self-confidence and finding self-expression. If you would have told me that 2 years ago, I'd have been like, you're an idiot, or nah, that's not going to happen. I'm going to be on stage. I'm going to be Bonnaroo, Coachella, whatever, and all that stuff. So right now, I just want to let life take me and use my gifts and everything to propel me to where I need to be. And if that means in a classroom, if it means it's on stage, if it's on behind a camera or whatever, I like, and maybe I'm not a rapper. Maybe I'm the person behind the scenes, and I've learned so much in this time to help somebody else. Like I'm very comfortable with just like letting things kind of go, and see where it takes me. So I know the things that I really like, I want, but I also know that life doesn't always give you what you want. And sometimes it'll give you what you not want or need, but like what you're ultimately destined to do or what your calling is. And so I'm pretty comfortable with that right now. And I like it.
yeah, man. Well, I think that's a really good place to be. You know, that's closer to where I feel like I'm attempting to, or maybe am like finding myself at, and why I love having these conversations with people, figuring out like, well, how did you find it? Or you know, what, or somebody who isn't finding it, maybe helping them kind of uncover that. Like that all is the cool way. And maybe that's not even the right way to say it, but like, to me, that's a cool way of like what it means to go with the flow. Mm-hmm. You know, go with the flow isn't just like being careless and not caring what happens. Yeah. It's having that perspective of, okay, I might not be the top rapper on the bill and I might not be making billions of dollars and whatever, but wow, I'm getting to have really cool conversations with these people, or I'm getting to impact these kids in some way. And this one person that said my song really connected with them. Wow, that's a really cool connection and
Yeah.
impact. Like finding that perspective and finding out, like I love how you explain that of just like whatever happens. And it's kind of that like in a roundabout way, like the law of attraction sort of thing, right? If you kind of put out this certain type of positive energy or whatever it is, or creation or anything, your life will start to kind of mold itself around that.
Yeah.
You'll find those things that then start. It's not that you're trying to make all these things fit. It's they're going to show up when they do actually fit.
Yeah, and I like take a lot of things to sports where, like, you could take the NBA, for example. LeBron James is, I mean, he's the best player to me. There's somebody that's like the 12th person on the bench, and they're still getting to do what they love. There's this big gap between these two people, but, like, I understand now, like, I may not be Drake. That's totally fine. I get to do what I love to do, and you can't tell that person who's the 12th person on the bench, they don't get to go back and go do camps in their hometown. They don't get to go around and speak to people and tell them how they got to the next level or how they've inspired people or whatever. So for me, I'm like, if I'm here and Drake is here or whoever the biggest artist is or whatever, like, I'm totally cool with that at this point in my life. And, like, I realize, like, I don't necessarily need all of that. I don't need the attention. I don't need all the money. I don't, like, that stuff is cool. It'd be nice and dope if it happens, but, like, I don't need all that anymore. And, like, my ideas of what success looked like changed drastically within, like, just in the last 2 years, where the things that I wanted before aren't necessarily the things I want now.
Dude, I feel like I could keep you here for another like 6 hours and just talk about all the things, mostly wrestling things, realistically.
Yeah.
I think once we wrap this one up, maybe we just hang out longer and do a wrestling podcast.
Man.
Only, just straight up wrestling podcast. So if you're down for that, we're going to make that happen. Dude, I cannot say how much I appreciate you being down to do this and just like how much of a blast this was.
Yeah, this is a lot of fun.
I'm so stoked we got to make this happen.
Yeah.
So is there anything story-wise before we like wrap things up? Like, is there anything like we're missing? Like, are you like, dude, we have not even talked about this thing that happened in my life? Like,
Nah, I mean, I think everything is kind of going like, and like, I also don't, I mean, I enjoy it, but it's like going step by step by a timeline. Like, nah, like,
yeah.
I like talking about how video games has shaped my life.
Yes, yeah. Well,
in
that's,
wrestling.
Yes, and that's even why I ask, because I'm always like, well, I want everyone to feel like they got everything off their chest in this. So I'm always like, there's nothing that like once we stop hitting record, you can be like, there's this thing I didn't get to say it. So I always want to check. Well, dude, I've got one more question for you, and then we can go do the wrestling podcast.
Yeah.
So I wrap up every episode of this the exact same way, same question. If right now on the other end of that microphone was everyone in the world, everywhere, and they could hear everything that you're saying, you get to share a message with them. With a live mic attached to everybody, what is it that you want to say to them? What do you feel like they should hear?
Man, I knew this question was coming, and I had an idea in the car, and I was like, got it. That's all gone. I want to say kind of how I end a lot of, or all my shows, is always love, always inspire, and know that when you wake up, you have superpowers, but also just remember that you have like your voice matters, and you never know who's watching you, and you never know like any moment that you have like while we're here to inspire people. So live your life as if like that's the mission, I guess, and like be a light to people.
Dude, that was great. That was. I'm imagining that's everything you thought about in your car. That was wonderful, dude. Thank you so much, man.
Thank you.
I am so happy that we have gotten to meet now.
Absolutely.
This has been an absolute blast. Actually, I have to say, I think this conversation in this episode was just too sweet. We'll throw it up.
Sweet.
And that's how we wrap up this episode. Dude, thank you so much.
Thank you.
This was a freaking blast. We're done, man. We did it. So, just so you future guests know, if you are a fan of pro wrestling, we will instantly be friends. I don't care what else we talk about, we will be friends. As you heard in that conversation. Dude, I got so stoked when I heard, when he revealed that he was a big fan. Any excuse to talk about wrestling, I'm going to take. Honestly, much like horror movies, I will jump on the opportunity if it's presented. So, yeah, going into this, as you heard me say, I had never met Joey. I only knew of him online. I saw a couple mutual friends followed him, and I am so glad that I reached out. That's what's crazy about this show is in getting to do it is I'm getting to meet and befriend so many cool people that I really do not know that I would have met otherwise or when, I guess, really, or under what circumstances. Look at that. I went from not knowing the guy to then meeting and talking about how we both used to make character arcs and universe builds and keeping stats and all this sort of stuff with video game characters that we created. I don't know. This was just seriously a blast of conversation. So again, thank you to Joey for being down to be on the show. So be sure to follow him and check him out online so you can find all the things that he's involved in, including, of course, his music. You can follow him at JoeyH4. That's the number 4, not the word. And when you get there, hit up the link tree in his bio because there he has linked anything and everything that he's a part of, from his music to music videos to his art in general, and the We Amplify Voices stuff that he talked about here in the show. It's all there waiting for you, and I urge you to go check it all out and really just support this awesome human being. But now I must bid you adieu. So thanks for listening to this episode. If you're watching on YouTube, thank you so much for going there and watching this whole episode. Wherever you are on the internet, please hop over to iTunes or Apple Podcasts and toss us a rating and a review. I'd really love to hear your feedback. But subscribe on iTunes while you're there. Follow on Spotify if that's where you are so you never miss an episode, whether it be these full-length episodes or any of the 50-Minute Fridays. You can follow us around social at WYDHPod. Most importantly, though, please just tell someone about this show, whether it is via social media or in person. Next time a friend asks for a podcast recommendation, make sure that they've heard of What You Don't Hear. So let's take it home. That was another awesome episode, at least in my opinion, and an awesome conversation and story shared. I will, of course, be back with a new guest and a new story that you've never heard in the next episode. And if you're not down with that, well, then I've got 2 words for you. If you're a wrestling fan, you get it. So good night and goodbye.